Star Trek the Motion Picture introduced us to a new design aesthetic. Star Trek, a 1960s science fiction property, had been gone for 10 years and needed a fresher look if it was to compete for viewers in the late 1970s. So not only did we get a newly designed Enterprise, but we got a newly designed bridge as well. The set was used and reused from 1979 onwards through much of the 1980s, and stood in as the command centre for more than just the Enterprise. So in this particularly nerdy video, we will look at this bridge set, the first for the big screen, and demonstrate how it was transformed over the course of the first 4 feature films. The reuse of this film set ensured that the Star Trek franchise would have a particular look across the 1980s, as seen in both the cinema and the television incarnations of Star Trek. You might call it a family resemblance. The design work for the new Enterprise bridge was begun with the planned Phase 2 television series, a series that was scrapped by Paramount in favour of a cinematic outing after the success of George Lucas's Star Wars in 1977. This was the debut of the new bridge set, and the first thing to note was the bridge was beige. Very beige. Almost to the point of being dull. It differed from the original 1960s bridge in other ways. It had twin turbo lifts, and the external bridge structure covered these turbo lift shaft heads, as well as an airlock. This solved the tricky problem that we outlined in a previous video called the Enterprise Bridge Mystery. Let's familiarise ourselves with the stations of this bridge. We start with the science station of Mr. Spock, initially to be that of another Vulcan character called Zon. It was between the turbo lift alcoves at the rear of the bridge, in a position which, in the 1960s bridge, had been Uhura's communications station. The science console was connected to the ship's library computer, and featured 2 auxiliary consoles that rolled out from under the console. Moving clockwise past the port side turbo lift, we come to the new position of Uhura's communications station. It was here external communications was managed, as well as the language translator, the automatic beacon system, and the log memory. The environmental control station did not have a chair, as it was not constantly manned. It was monitored, for it was here the ship's environmental control systems were found. Weapons and defence were controlled from this station, and it has always been a puzzle to me that it stood with its own structure, creating a niche. If anyone can offer a reason for this, a design unique on this bridge, then please leave a comment. It is interesting to note that concept sketches of the Phase 2 Enterprise bridge, from which this bridge is a very direct descendant, also had unique features for this station, such as an enemy tracking sphere. Round we go, past the view screen, which was not a window, and here was gravity control, like the environmental monitoring station, unmanned. Next to it was damage and repair, again unmanned. Internal security was said to be capable of monitoring everyone aboard the ship, even their health, which isn't remotely disturbing, and monitoring every door in order to detect anyone moving around without permission. Here was the engineering station, fully manned. It was the bridge console for controlling internal power systems, impulse system ignition, warp system fuel management, and it even had the ship's warp equivalent of a speedometer. So, now we know the layout and appearance of the motion picture bridge set as of 1979, or, if we are talking in-universe, stardate 7412.6. But, for the second film, there would be a few changes made. The Enterprise bridge set of 1982, or stardate 8130.3, had to be capable of being redressed into that of the USS Reliant, the smaller Miranda-class starship hijacked by Khan in the film. It was redressed as follows. The Science Station was moved anti-clockwise to replace the Engineering Station, and Internal Security took up the space between the turbolifts. The Engineering Station was moved across to replace Environmental Monitoring, which was itself moved across the bridge to replace Damage and Repair. Damage and Repair was moved clockwise by one space to fill the void left by Internal Security. It was all rather musical chairs-like. A new lick of paint and additional background detail was added to move the appearance of the bridge away from its rather dull and beige appearance in the motion picture. More subtle changes included a reupholstering of the bridge chairs. And one more change. The raised dais on which stood the helm and navigation consoles, as well as the captain's chair, was changed. It was four-cornered in the motion picture, but became a rough capital I shape for the Wrath of Khan. The Internal Security Station had the virtue of being more easily moved when compared to the Science Station, so when the Enterprise bridge had to become that of the Reliant, it was quickly removed and replaced by a single turbolift, suggesting a smaller starship. The Enterprise set turbolifts were covered up by cupboard-like stations, said to be unmanned auxiliary systems, although they looked rather like food processing units. I would like to think that at least one of them included a coffee dispenser, because piloting a starship is thirsty work. In this image from the film, we can see diagrams not of a Miranda-class ship, but of the engineering hull of a Constitution-class starship, and the other monitors look as if they have been partially masked. This is physically the Enterprise's damage and repair station, but it is being used as a second science station. I did say this video would be a bit nerdy, didn't I? Getting back to the set redress, there were also other changes made for the Reliant bridge. The stations had their borders painted in silvery grey, and the turbolift doors became blue-grey. The Enterprise bridge remained unchanged for the third Star Trek film, released in 1984, stardate 8210.3, but it was at least partially redressed for the small science vessel in orbit over the Genesis planet, USS Grissom. In this image, we see the science station, and there's the helm console facing to the right. But look here, this is clearly the alcove for the turbolift doors. What seems to have happened was the central helm and navigation console, along with the captain's chair, was turned and the railings removed. It made more sense to rotate the central console than to rearrange the outer rim stations, and then shoot the Grissom bridge scenes as if using a partial set. Apart from this glimpse of the turbolift alcove, we didn't see a turbolift on the Grissom, and given the small size of the Oberth class, it would not make much sense for there to be a full network of turbolifts. There just would not be enough space. But it is worth noting that, like the Reliant, the damage and repair station was again used as an additional science station. The fourth Star Trek movie, 1986, or in-universe stardate 8390, and 1986, used at least 2 and even 3 starship bridges, the Saratoga, the Yorktown, and the Enterprise A. The Saratoga, another Miranda-class starship, might only have had one turbolift, just like the Reliant before her, but the low lighting of the bridge scene in the film made it difficult to judge the layout. Like the Grissom, there was no obvious bridge railing, And while we might expect a turbo lift, like that of the Reliant, we have what seems to be an engineering station. A science station may be to the captain's left. As for the Yorktown, we saw only what seemed to be the internal security station in the background. We have already pondered over the question of where the Enterprise A came from in a previous video, and now we know where she ended up, at the Starship Museum. When we were introduced to this new Enterprise, she was fitted with what would be the first of her 3 bridge configurations, but the last of the motion picture type. It was arranged like that of the second and third movies, but with a fresh paint job and a polish. There was strip lighting along the bottom of the bridge bulkheads. This made the set far lighter and clean in appearance, suggesting a brand new starship, and it contrasted nicely with the solid black of the bridge consoles. These were computer-generated touchpads, like those of the next generation consoles, which were to appear a year later on television. The most unique element of this bridge redress was the inclusion of wall supports. I have created a full number of supports for this recreation, although the film does not show all of the bridge set. The Star Trek The Motion Picture Bridge set served in both cinema and on television for a decade. It would go on to serve as the battle bridge of the Enterprise D, the bridge of the Stargazer, and even as a courtroom, being cut up and put together as the scripts required. But with Star Trek V: The Final Frontier, a new aesthetic for the bridge came into being. We will look at that bridge in a future video, but for now, I hope you enjoyed this video. Do please subscribe to this channel for more, and why not explore my previous videos where you might find further content you might like. And if you think I should at some point make a video about the Lost Enterprise of Phase 2, then feel free to comment.